That's not mine.
What's not yours?
The pen. I've never...
You know, a part of me is embarrassed to admit that I did not do my full research prior to seeing the movie, and so had zero idea who was going to be co-writing it. But come on, Hollywood, seriously? Lost, Prometheus, Star Trek Into Darkness, now Tomorrowland? How many examples is it going to take for you to stop giving Damon Lindelof money? That is quite literally how it went down with me. The teaser trailer looked really inventive and intriguing, and when I learned soon after that Brad Bird, director of animated classics such as The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and 2011's surprisingly good Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol was going to be spearheading the piece, this looked like something to really get excited over. Or so I thought. In case you don't know who Lindelof is, as I said previously, he's been the co-writer behind stuff like this. And if you've noticed a pattern in how they all seem to share a similar flaw in having stories that become convoluted, overly complicated, and end up losing a lot of narrative focus, then you'll get why I rolled my eyes when I realised he was involved in a movie that I was looking forward to. And yeah, this really does seem to play out like an anthology of interest episode of Futurama, showing us the outcome of what if these two guys decided to get together and make a movie. Tomorrowland's intentions seem to be in the right place, as I get the sense that Bird is trying to get across a sincere message about optimism, in an age where childish wannabe cool hipsters look at that slightly positive attitude in films as being some form of camp, and which results in many modern day blockbusters shooting for far bleaker aesthetics, but it all gets lost in the shuffle once him and Lindelof come together to form the screenplay, and Tomorrowland soon turns from a premise into an actual movie. More so than telling the story the best way it can, the script comes off as an onslaught of cheap excuses for conceptually cool things to happen that I can imagine the filmmakers drew up in a room one day, rather than worrying more about the far more important overarching narrative at play, and then trying to make said cool things complement that tale. This is something Lindelof is infamous for doing a lot of the time. He wants to get so much stuff into one movie, be it a plot point or, again, a conceptually cool thing on screen, but they're contrivances, not actual elements that feel necessary to completing the finished film, which is why what could have played out as a coherent, imaginative, or inspiring fantasy ends up coming off more like a confused, indecisive old man who can't quite make his mind up where he's going with his story, but whose heart is still in the right place, and so instead of provoking a reaction of, your movie's bad and you should feel bad, just kinda makes you go, ah, that's a shame. Our story, the film opens with a flashback to 1964, as a young Frank Walker attends the New York World's Fair, where due to his limited jetpack invention, he attracts the attention of a young girl named Athena, who sees his potential, gives him a pin imposed with a T symbol, and tells him to follow her aboard the fair's It's a Small World attraction. When Frank sneaks onto the ride, his pin is scanned and he's transported into the futuristic cityscape known as Tomorrowland. Years later, optimist and science enthusiast Casey Newton, played by Britt Robertson, sneaks into a decommissioned NASA launch pad in Cape Canaveral, where her father is an employed engineer. After Athena sneaks another pin that is programmed to Casey's DNA into her motorcycle helmet, Casey's plan to sabotage the machines that are dismantling the launch pad is interrupted when she gets arrested, and when she discovers the pin among her personal items at the police station, she discovers that upon contact, the pin instantly transports her to Tomorrowland. But after briefly exploring the otherworldly metropolis, it's soon established that the pin is on a timer that has expired and returns her to the real world. From then onwards, it's a mystery plot as to who knows about the marvelous city, with George Clooney as a grown-up Frank Walker and Athena, soon revealed to be a robot, joining the adventure, finding out just what Tomorrowland is, and how Casey can get back there without various bad guy drones chasing them down. And if nothing else, you've got to admire how ballsy Tomorrowland seems to be for running so happily with its ridiculously out there concepts as much as it does. Unfortunately, structure seems to have let the whole thing down. Well, and context actually, but we'll get to that in a minute. I don't know who decided Frank's flashback sequence, which lasts way too long by the way, should have opened the movie, but it really cuts the nuts off of the magical mystery a majority of the film then onwards is built around. If I were to guess, I'd say it was a studio decision based on Disney's lack of faith in its younger viewers sitting through 30 minutes of the picture without Tomorrowland actually showing up, but I want to stress that is a theory of my own making. But either way, it betrays the entire spirit that made it all compelling at a conceptual level. The excitement stems from getting to see so little of this place and wanting more, but in a completely backwards turnout, we're handed everything straight away on a silver platter, which means all we're doing from then onwards is watching characters slowly catch up to and big up stuff we've already seen. What's further confusing is how everyone keeps acting as if the real world they're currently living in has gone the way of RoboCop's Detroit, where any element of hope has vanished. But this is where we come to that context thing I mentioned earlier, in as much as we're given none. We don't see any crime, we don't see any angry mobs, no nuclear strikes, not even a kid stealing another kid's lunch money, nothing to indicate this world is so terrible, besides a space junkie being upset that they're not sending up rockets anymore. I mean, yeah, that's a shame, but that's also the case in our world, and it hasn't stopped any of us from enjoying life elsewhere. On a pure entertainment level, while it's never never exactly boring. Most of the runtime consists of our characters trying to actually get to Tomorrowland, which means the story, as sincere as it may seem, feels like it's restricted by a first act that goes on far too long. Instead of that playing out like a fun adventure, it annoyingly comes off more like the filmmakers exhausting every possible secret door idea they could theorize. It's all harmless and enjoyable, I guess, but it feels like tedious filler so we can kill enough time before the big reveal can seem shocking and unexpected enough as to be impactful. And while it does, to its credit, change up the plot, it might have had enough room to be resolved in Act 3 had we got there much sooner. As it stands, the finale is an absolute mess of ugly CGI robots, overly complicated plotting and exposition, and by the end, any thematic ideals the movie tries to sell to its audience just gets crushed under the weight of it all. Lindelof remains as ever a master of taking simple ideas that could have resonated and jam-packing them with extra plot points as to make the audience think they're watching something really clever play out on screen, to the point where he just ends up making it all tedious and uninvolving. Robertson is fun as Casey, but the reactions just aren't there. Whenever it feels like she should be freaking out, she just seems mildly amused. George Clooney is good if unremarkable as Frank, but Hugh Laurie brings a welcomed quick wit to his character David Nix and is undoubtedly the standout performance. I really wish Tomorrowland was good enough as to complement the substance of its themes. I mean, let's not forget, even I'm an advocate for light-hearted optimism in films, but it's completely let down by an abundant lack of narrative focus and a screenplay that just doesn't belong. It is indeed possible to tell simple tales and still be smart about executing them without pointlessly shoehorning a bunch of phony twists and turns, and rarely have I seen a premise that seems so easy to get right in that regard get done so wrong. Cheers for watching, guys, and as always, if you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel.